All right, Shalom family, welcome. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Aman. Shalom. Allah Cham Yahweh. Barak Allah Cham Yahweh. Atnai Kovai. Chelet the servants of Christ. Ma Shalom Chei. Hello, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Appreciate, love you. Thank you for being on tonight. We give our honor and praise once again to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. We give our praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. Love you all to life. Thank you so much. We honor your presence. I'm going to be short and sweet this evening. I'm going to try to end around 8:20. Took us a little long to get started, so maybe it'll be like closer to 8:23-ish or something. But I will not be before you too long. We have a word from on high that we are going to get out the way. And by the way, happy anniversary, I believe, right, to two of our very own, Minister Bertram and Sister Jessica. May Yahweh continue to bless thee and your families. And we're excited. Sorry, Minister Bertram, we tried to connect on phone calls today a couple times. For whatever reason, it didn't happen. But just know that I love you, sir, and appreciate your life. And we thank you so much. We're going to say our Bible pledge real quick. If you'd like to go ahead and get ready, stand to your feet. Or if do whatever you're able to go ahead and reverence the word of Yahweh. We invite you to do so now at this moment in time, and we'll get right into the word. As I said, I don't have long before you, but we're going to be obedient to the time that Yahweh has designated. Now, Aman, for this is the Yom, even the time that He has made. We shall rejoice and be glad in it. Let us go ahead and jump on over. Can you guys hear me on YouTube all right? Can you see and hear me on YouTube all right? Looks like we got persons coming on and jumping on. If you can, please let me know. If you can hear me on TikTok, see me on TikTok, please let me go. Let me know. But we'll get ready to say our Bible pledge real quick. All is well. Okay, how you doing, Minister Stephen? How you doing, Minister Shante? How you doing, Beck? How you doing, Sister Renee? How you doing, Minister Samaya Ray? How you doing, Minister Sherlin? Thank you. How you doing, Bruda? How you doing, Sister Carla B? Sister Jessica? Once again, happy anniversary to you. Pocket hopping, Ebcar, Sister Knight. Lottie Dottie, everybody. Javana, if I miss your name, charge it to my head, not to my heart. Appreciate, love you. Thank you for being on. How you doing, Tanisha? Lottie Dottie, and everybody. Okay, all righty. Let's go ahead and get into this. Tonight, we're going to talk about something real quick. Praise Yahweh. We can call it SCS if you want, S.C.S. SCS, or you can just call it what we're going to talk about tonight real quick. Scope, cost, and schedule. Scope, cost, and schedule. We're going to talk some project management lingo. However, our lives are projected to do well and do great, and we expect the blessing. And since we accept the blessing now that we're going to expect, we might as well make sure that we start living this life and projecting things correctly and making sure we write down the vision and make it plain upon the tablet. So something my wife taught me, and I heard her talk about before, but she really blessed me with the teaching on it earlier today and really throughout the day. I've asked her a bunch of questions on it, right? But we're talking about SCS, scope, cost, and schedule. Now, if you're going to do anything, if you're going to work on anything, if you're going to be in anything, be aware of anything, you have to realize and be aware of what? Scope, cost, and schedule. How you doing, Brother Cole? Now, it's important because the scope of anything that you're doing, we're talking about SCS, scope, cost, and schedule. How you doing, Brother Craig? How you doing, Ali? So scope, cost, schedule. It's important that we have some SCS, some scope, cost, schedule in our lives. Why is that extremely important for us? How you doing, Brother TJ? Because you got to know the scope or the overall. You have to know what it is that you're trying to do. What is the lens? What is the vision? What is the point of the exercise? What's the ending point? How do we know that we actually passed the finish line? That's scope, right? In a nutshell. I got to be real quick tonight because I don't have that much time. So scope, kind of talking about the whole thing. And you can look this stuff up for yourself, by the way. You could probably Google scope, cost, and schedule and come up with a lot of great business modules or persons teaching on business, etc. But first thing, scope. What is the scope of the what is the scope of what we're dealing with? How long will it take? How much effort? Right? Things like that. What is the scope? What's the point of it? Then we have something called what? What does the C stand for? First S standing for scope. The C, second letter, is C standing for cost. How much will this cost me? Now, in a lot of corporations, they're going to start talking about finance first. But we could even talk about resource. How much energy is this going to cost? How much time? Right? All these different things. right? I'm not sorry. Let's separate time, but let's just say resources, or let's even talk financially. How you doing, Sister Monica? How much is this going to cost me? If I'm giving to this, what is this really going to cost me, right? But what is the scope? If I don't know the scope of it, I won't know the cost. Yahashua says like this in the Word. He says, "Have you considered the cost?" But if you can't consider the cost of something if you don't know the scope of it. How you doing, Sister LaCrystal? You cannot consider what this walk will cost you if you haven't first considered the scope of it. What's the point? You can't consider how much your calling will cost you if you've never figured out what is the scope of your calling. Who am I supposed to preach to? Who am I supposed to reach, right? Who am I supposed to teach all these different things? So you have to figure out the scope, the cost, right? Those are important. That SCS, if you don't know the scope of it, you're going to have a problem with the cost of it. So you got to know the scope, then you have to know the cost, right? After you know the scope, after you know the cost, and the last one is what? Is your schedule. How you doing, Sister Shanette? How you doing, Takara? So you have to know the scope, the cost, and then the schedule, right? Because watch this. This is something Elder Alma was teaching me earlier today, right? When I was listening to her, she was making it a point to say, and hey, if the scope is one thing, cool, but you got to know the cost and the schedule are going to be running about the same, right? So if you don't have if you don't have the mindset of so basically put it like this: whatever you're thinking will cost you something, whatever the cost of something is what you schedule. I don't know if that makes sense, but that really blessed me. I hope I'm saying that correct. Like, in other words, whatever you think the scope or the cost of it, or whatever the cost is, that's what it's gonna like. It's gonna also be linked with your schedule. If you haven't scheduled well, it'll cost you in the long run, right? If you don't do so watch this. If you got those of you who have children, especially if you have multiple children, if you got 5 babies and you haven't scheduled stuff out, it will cost you. Does that make sense? I want to make sure before I move along, because I'm saying a lot in a little bit, I know. And this is stuff that obviously is maybe I'm giving you a rabbit hole to go down. But if you say a lot, right? If you don't make sure you got a schedule together for your family, you got 5 babies, it's gonna cost you a lot. Right? There's some bills that you get not watch this. If your bill is due on the 10th of the month, it was really due on the first, but you wait until the 10th of the month, right? That's not the schedule, probably the best schedule to have. Oh, okay. So that's probably not the best thing to have, right? Why? Because if you know that your phone bill is due on the first and you keep scheduling everything on the 10th, all it takes is one bad day or one forgetful day. And what happens? One extra day missing schedule or having a bad type of schedule will what cost you? Now all of a sudden I don't know what your phone bill is, your $100 phone bill could now with penalties be 175, possible, depending on who you're dealing with, right? Because your costs and your schedule go together. So, question for you: in this thing that Yahweh has told you, do you know the scope of your calling? Do you know what you're supposed to be doing? Do you know the point of it? Thank you for the love, by the way. All right, and then do you know that? And then now, have you tried to figure out what is it that I have to schedule to make sure that I keep a low cost? Because also, too, what will happen is this: let's say you schedule poorly, and you realize that you still got 75% of the work to do, but you only got 25% of the initial time to do it in. That means it will actually cost you more because now you have to hire more persons. You have to do more training. You have to spend more hours. You have to deal with persons getting irritated and agitated. You might have to have more lunches and stuff to keep morale up, which means you got to pay for food now, right? So when you schedule these things, you have to schedule with scope in mind, realizing that your schedule and your costs are going to be married together, right? A lot of persons will say, "Man, uh, I haven't spent any money. I haven't spent any time, but I'm right on schedule." Well, hold on. If you haven't spent any money or spent any time yet, you're not on schedule. You need to change your schedule because your schedule can't be at zero and your cost be at 95%. If you're saying that you're putting effort in, but you have no schedule, eventually it's going to catch up. So we got, how you doing, Sister Monica? So the other, got two Monicas on, praise y'all. How you doing, Miss Q? How you doing, Brother Roger, if I didn't say so already? So I got to realize real quick, fast, in a hurry, what is my schedule, right? Based on the scope. And then what is my schedule and how faithful can I be? What will it cost me? Or if I'm going to pay a cost, I have to figure out whatever the cost is, and then I got to keep up the schedule. Your cost is based on your schedule. How you doing, Brother Dwayne? Don't miss that. Your cost is based on your schedule. Your cost, come on, somebody, is based on your what? On your schedule. Your cost is based on your what? On your schedule. What does that mean? That means that a lot of you are not looking at how much time. So even when persons will say, Pastor Kofi, how much time does it take for me to be able to get to XYZ? I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to do that. Okay. Have you considered the cost? Have you considered the cost based off of the scope, the entirety of what's about to happen? And have you written out a schedule, written down a vision, and made it plain upon the tablets? Is your SCS on point? If it's not, you're going to miss the target. I can almost guarantee it. I can almost guarantee it. Right? One of the things that SOC we're trying to get back on track with, because Pastor Kofi got mixed up in some stuff and been dealing with some stuff for a while. And finally, when I broke down in front of y'all, I had to admit, hey, I'm not hitting the schedule. I'm not able to really do what it costs because I haven't really made sure I took care of the whole scope, including my family needs. So I had to go back and say, you know what, let me make sure that things are better, that things are more relaxed, that maybe I can't do as much traveling right now in this moment in this season in time. But if I do that in the long run, it will help what? To get the cost back down because the schedule's back in order. And now we're back in frame as far as the scope. We can see what we're supposed to see. And I don't know if some persons have seen it. I've seen it so far that just in a little bit of time since stuff slowed down at the end of July with the housing stuff, through VBS and everything, took just a short break, couple of days off to make sure family stuff got done and also stuff got done for my immediate family. And then all of a sudden we come back and it's been easier to be on time. It's been easier to do. There's a lot less stuff going on. Why? Because the SCS, the scope, the cost, and the scheduling, they go hand in hand. So consider the cost, but you got to first consider the scope. Where am I headed? This is that SCS for you. Where am I headed? That's the scope. Once you know where you're headed, then you consider the cost. And are you willing to pay what it takes? Let me say that one more again. Are you willing to pay what it takes? Not just are you willing to get there, not just you're willing to go ahead and celebrate, not just you're willing to go ahead and eat the cake. Are you willing to go ahead and bake the cake? It takes longer to bake the cake than it does to enjoy it. It takes longer to bake the cake than it does to serve it. But man, for persons who like cake, when you go through the process, it tastes really great. It tastes sweeter when you made it, when you went through everything. But you got to consider the cost, right? Consider the icing. You have to consider the flour. You got to consider the eggs, right? Whatever it is that you're doing. Some of you do vegan cakes or whatever. Whatever you're doing, you got to consider the cost. You got to consider once you put it in the oven, you don't want the cake to fall. You got to tiptoe around that place. So you willing to tiptoe? Or are you heavy foot? And you say it don't matter if I'm heavy foot, and then get mad when your cake, right, fall through. Right? You got to consider the cost. Before you put it in the oven, you got to say to yourself, well, first, the scope of things is I'm baking a cake. Who am I baking it for? What are they willing to eat? Et cetera, et cetera. Are there any allergies? What is it that I like? What kind of icing do we like? Blah, blah. Should we have stuff with it? What is it for? If it's for this, that, blah, blah, whatever. You bake the cake, you consider what? The scope. And then you have to consider the cost. Because different cakes take different ingredients. What is it going to cost you? How much time is it going to cost you? Do you have the right type of oven? Some cakes take specific types of ovens sometimes. And then at the end of it, then you have to schedule it out, right? And then you have to schedule it out. Are you willing to take how much it takes? If it says put the cake in there for 3 hours, leave it in there for 3 hours. Consider the cost. If you ain't got 3 hours, if you only got 30 minutes, you're not going to bake a cake. Not today. Right? You got to have your SCS. You got to have your scope. You have to have your costs. You have to have your schedule. And you'll find out that your schedule and your costs are like this because your scope and your costs are like this. Consider the cost based off of where you're headed, and then make sure that you have a schedule. And watch this. Value it. Vision, purpose, value. Value that thing. If this is the scope of what Yah showed you, then value it like what he showed you. And if it is what he showed you, then make sure what? That you go through what? The cost of it. What is it going to cost? And whatever it costs, if that's what Yah said, then be willing because he already took care of the cost anyways, because he doesn't give vision without provision. Then be faithful to the schedule. How many days are you going to have to get up? What if Yah says, what if you keep saying, Yah, when is this going to be over? And he says, until I say stop. Then you need to have your schedule in place until he says stop. Amen. All right. Thank y'all. I said it's going to be short tonight. I'm going to keep my promise, keep my word. We got to get on the road. So thank you to Dr. Hustel. Appreciate, love you. You guys take care. Continue to do awesome works. We give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give our honor and praise to Him for my wife, the Honorable Alma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. Check her out on TikTok, YouTube, website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. We're on our way. Thank you for the well wishes. Thank you for everybody who was able to make it to the meeting tonight. We still have another meeting in about half an hour or a little over half an hour at 9 p.m. Eastern New York time or 8 p.m. Central, depending on where you are. We're going to have our Central North Region meeting. So prayerfully, you guys can meet us for that. That'll be everybody in Canada, Milwaukee, Minnesota, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wisconsin, and Ohio. I think I got everybody in there. Amen. So prayerfully, we'll see you later tonight, and it'll be brief, but we'll make sure that we get it in. And other than that, remember as always, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in the system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family, peace. And if you're wondering if you're on the meeting tonight, please check out your email. Also, a reminder, I'm getting errors on emails. I thought it was because some people it's because you said you don't want the meetings and all that, which is fine. Some of it you blocked the stuff, which is fine. But a lot of you guys, the simple stuff like you haven't either accepted SOC stuff, or you've said you think you might have said you didn't want to come to one SOC thing, which means that it blocked you since it's a continuous reminder, or it might be something like you guys haven't just made sure that you have space in your email. So some of you might just want to delete a few emails, maybe even delete 100, 200, 1,000 or so. And especially if you don't use email anymore. And then when you delete it, there'll be space for us people to send. So if you want to check that for us, that would be beautiful. That would be lovely. That would be beautiful. I'm on. Tada, Yahasel, take care. Love y'all. And we'll talk to you guys soon. All right. Thank you. Peace.